Okay, the time is up. All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Just to be sure I cover all time zones. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this webinar on cybersecurity modeling in Enterprise Architect. Please note that the audience will be muted throughout the whole time. For questions, please use the chat window. The questions will be answered at the end. Okay, so let's start. My name is Bob Hruška and I am a global trainer and consultant at Spark Systems Central Europe. I hope my focus is on helping our clients to deliver business value from development processes at an executive level by providing pragmatic solutions to boost the likelihood of successful product delivery. Now, before I dig into the cybersecurity modeling, let me introduce our company. Spark Systems was founded in 1996 in Australia, and it is the creator and publisher of Enterprise Architect, a globally successful UML modeling platform. In order to provide the best service related to Enterprise Architect in a local language and time zone, Spark Systems Central Europe was established in 2004 to serve the entire German-speaking world and beyond. Spark Systems Central Europe focuses on providing customized assistance for European customers with language-specific technical and sales support. By the way, we wrote a book. This paperback not only serves as the documentation and guide for UML and SysML with Enterprise Architect training, but is also excellent for self-study and delivery is within Europe and worldwide. In this webinar, you will learn about the security and safety challenges arising from the way how the systems are currently being developed. You will get an understanding of the need for change in terms of potential security threats prediction. Later, you will get familiar with the concept of threat modeling and see how to evaluate potential security threats in Enterprise Architect. I will start with an introduction covering modeling challenges and followed by reasoning why we should care and how to make the situation in terms of cybersecurity better. Next, I will quickly walk you through cybersecurity modeling and threat modeling with Stride. After looking into possibilities with modeling with Stride, I will cover the notion of threat modeling in Enterprise Architect along with a live demo. I will conclude the webinar with a summary where we are today and where we are heading. But first, let's clarify the terms. What is product security? Product security is an umbrella term used to describe the security of product and its resilience to malicious tampering that may result in unexpected operation. What is cyber security? Just a second, I need to mute someone so we are not interrupted. What is cybersecurity? It's a body of technologies, processes, and practices designed to protect networks, computers, mobile devices, you name it, from attack, damage, or unauthorized access. What is a security vulnerability? Flaw or weakness in the design or implementation of an information control system that could be intentionally or unintentionally exploited to adversely affect an organization's operations or assets through loss of confidentiality, integrity, or availability. You might have heard the term security weakness or security defect, so that's also referring to the vulnerability. What is security and safety challenges? What security and safety challenges arise from the way systems are currently being developed? Building automation system servers are wide open to the internet with no authentication. Backdoor service passwords on systems are published in easily obtained service manuals. I think you've seen it. Some devices have nothing even resembling security. For instance, an insulin pump manufacturers publish specifications in patent filings for communication protocol. So it means that hacker simply needs to buy parts or build a software-defined radio to hack the whole thing. Increased usage of third-party products, commercial or open source. Standalone device vulnerabilities. Firmware can be maliciously altered and uploaded, replacing authentic files. What are the opportunities for improvement? Understanding problem before implementing solution, proactively identify potential security threats and address them prior to production, testing as early as possible throughout life cycle, and pushing understanding and demand of security further so everyone knows what security is. How should system development take security into account in the future? Make sure that you insert security practices as part of your software development lifecycle is what is needed. This is really essential. This means including concept phase. Verification has to happen early as part of the internal process. It saves money. How exactly can one imagine the topic of cybersecurity modeling? Well, it is about identifying and addressing architectural risks via threat modeling. Threat modeling aims at identifying threats that can harm assets and ensuring that adequate controls to mitigate these threats are covered by the security requirements. In a sense, threat modeling is an exercise in gap analysis geared at identifying missing security requirements. The threat modeling exercise aims at identifying entry and exit points of the system under development that an attacker can exploit. As such, it provides the development team an attacker's or hostile user's viewpoint. It also provides the team with the necessary information to perform design and overall product trade-off decisions by providing insight into the areas that require further investigation from a security viewpoint. Let me just mute other guys. So we are quite a few. I'm just looking at the amount of attendees. So let us continue. Why threat modeling? Well, it brings solid foundation for building security and safety solutions addressing confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Proactively identify potential security threats and address them prior to production. Identify vulnerabilities in an existing solution. Well, back in the day when systems were just looking like that, when you had a just user, application, and database, and the boundary was just covering the trust boundary, so-called, was just covering the application and database, that was quite easy. Okay, well, cybersecurity was not such a big deal back in the days, but let me show you this example. Well, when mobile devices started to appear, that whole thing has brought a complexity into our systems, and we had to start think about how to secure our systems against malicious users, for instance, bypassing the mobile client, and not to mention when an IoT has started to be the hype, then it has brought even greater attention to cybersecurity. The concept of threat modeling is first to decide on scope, what you want to threat model, create your data flow diagram, identify security risks, identify security controls, countermeasures, risk mitigation that mitigate vulnerabilities and address threats. Unlike pure verification techniques such as penetration testing or fuzzing, threat modeling can be performed before a product or service has been implemented. This helps ensure that a product or service is as much as possible secure by design, and that's the goal. A threat model is a representation of the software or device components in a system, the data flows between them, and the trust boundaries in a system. When threat modeling, potential design vulnerabilities can be discovered by analyzing the system security properties and identifying potential threats to the information assets in a system. We have someone to show us a video. Please make sure that your video is not visible unless that's intentionally done. Thank you. Perfect. Okay, let us move on the presentation. The threat modeling starts with a data flow diagram. From the diagram, potential threats are identified. For each threat, mitigations are proposed. In some cases, the mitigation takes the form of changing the design itself, in which case the new or changed elements must be analyzed in an additional iteration. When the mitigations have been implemented, the product or service is validated against the threat model to ensure that the mitigations work and the design functionality and performance are sufficient. If the design has serious security issues, revisiting the design and the threat model may be appropriate. So make sure that you go back and you check if all of those vulnerable things were covered. Do the validation. STRIDE. What is a STRIDE? That's an acronym for the threat types of spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, and denial of service, and elevation of privilege. STRIDE is a way to find a wide variety of threats using these easy-to-remember threat types. Not all threats fits easy into a STRIDE category, and some threats may fit into more than one category. What is more important is that than fitting is that a threat to a category is using the model to help you describe the threat and design an effective mitigation. So don't spend too much time on trying to identify the best category for it. Just pick the most appropriate to it and find some mitigation. The following chart gives definition of the threats in STRIDE. So when I have a look at a spoofing, the property is authentication. Typical spoofing is one of the most common thing. The threat definition: spoofing threats involve an adversary creating and exploiting confusion about who is talking to whom. Spoofing threats apply to the entity being fooled, not the entity being impersonated. Sorry. All right, and the rest of those you can read it. By the way, you will get a slide in PDF. So whenever there is a link to something, you don't have to write it down very quickly. So you will get the slides. So don't worry about it. All right. What are the technical and organizational requirements? Well, we have to build a security culture in three areas: engineering, legal, and marketing. In engineering, it's related to robustness, availability, and productivity. Legal department also plays a role. Safety and IP protection. And marketing, brand protection, and reputation. Reputation, actually, I would highlight as one of the most important thing, because once your product gets a bad reputation due to some vulnerability or due to some security issues, to get back your reputation is very, very hard. Anyway, so moving throughout the company culture is a very good thing. So make sure that the culture has to change, the mindset of people has to change, so everyone knows what security is. So everyone need to look at security with understanding of what it means. So no misunderstandings allowed. The best known tool covering this topic is the Microsoft Threat Modeling tool, intended to assist in analyzing the design of a system for security risks and assist in mitigating the identified threats. And now let's see what benefits you can leverage by doing cybersecurity modeling in Enterprise Architect. Enterprise architect supports scenarios as follows. Obviously, you can create a new threat model, meaning you can use, there is a specially defined diagram type, which is called a trust diagram, which allows you to define the data flows as well as the trust boundaries. Obviously, you can modify an existing threat model, so whenever you created earlier the model, you can just open that and modify and change it. Analyze the potential vulnerability using Stride. So we have implemented some generic rules which which could cover the basic vulnerabilities what system can expose. Obviously, if you use the built-in capability, meaning the document generation, you can create various reports out of Enterprise Architect. Also, you can share your threat models using standards like XMI and OSLC, and analyze, visualize, and communicate the results in business language. I'm talking heat maps. All right, so let me just show you a screenshot how it looks. So this screenshot, you see that over here there are some actors, and this is the result of the potential threats analysis. So there are generated some threats, and the threats have some linkages to the appropriate elements being involved. Here is an example of the heat map, how this can be used. We have 3 categories. The first category, we just focus on the state of those threats, so needs investigation. So the bigger area it is, so or the darker area it is, it just gives us a signal that okay, repudiation, there are a lot of things, a lot of threats of going to or being identified as this category, so we have to focus on that, and we need to investigate those. Not started, again, repudiation or repudiation is also the leader, and mitigated elevation of privilege, so we are good at that. And now let's see the live demo. So let's hope that everything will work smoothly. You know how it is when you start, when you do live demo. Okay, so I'm starting Enterprise Architect. You will see that in a moment. Okay, just for your information, I'm using Enterprise Architect 14, and where to get this and what's the future, as I said in the beginning, you will get this information in a moment after this demo. All right. So let me start with I will create file-based repository, and I will just use my favorite path, which is temp. So I just created file-based repository, and in this repository I have installed a special add-on on cybersecurity. So you would have to have the add-on to be able to do that. As I said, more information is coming on this distribution. So let me just show you how it works. So I will show you those examples when I was discussing the evolution of complexity of our system. So let me first create the typical situation client server thing. So I will create a package, and under that package I will create a new diagram, and here is the new thing. A new diagram which is the trust diagram. When I open the trust diagram, obviously the toolbox, which is related to the trust diagram, appears. And this toolbox, I will just use that to create the diagram. So first, let me see, here is some user. Also, you can even use the commonly known thing called quick linker to very effectively create a diagram. So user will send some data to application, which has some process, and obviously the application will have some data store, which in our case it's going to be a database, and the database obviously we will just have bidirectional data flow. So this is the DFD diagram. Nothing new, not a rocket science. Let me just make it bigger for you. The next thing what you do is, in terms of threat models, you create something called a trust boundary. The trust boundary, as you see, I just chose this item from toolbox, I placed it on a diagram, and I will just call it, this is my server trust boundary. There we go. Okay, now we are done. This is our first diagram. We will save the diagram. The next thing what I do is I will use the cybersecurity modeling add-in, and I will validate this diagram against the generic rules. As you see, the cybersecurity modeling analyzer, it's using the built-in functions of enterprise architect. So it's using the system output, where it works in a way that it just lists all the threats, potential threats found, and by double clicking it really highlights what's happening here. Also, besides, it generates a list of threats, which looks like that. And those threats, if I move the threat on a diagram, it, first of all, as you see, the name of the threat is automatically generated in a way that it reflects the name of the element. So user may be subject to elevation of privilege using remote code execution. It correctly identified that there is a potential threat type elevation of privilege. These letters above the element are telling you that this is the E, which means elevation of privilege. The color identifies the state of the mitigation. So we haven't started. If I change the state, needs investigation, it will automatically change the color to yellow. If I change the state to mitigated, it will change the color to green, which means we are done. So also, this is the concept. Also, what we are thinking, we would like to educate people in terms of cybersecurity. So we prepared from a website alwasp.org, we prepared some checklists which are aiming to the concrete vulnerability. So for instance, this one, elevation of privilege, so there is a checklist. So, well, run with least privilege. Well, okay, we will do that. So elevation of privilege mitigated. So this is the concept. Similarly, I can create the more complex one, for instance the IoT, because the time is really flying. IoT, I will create a new diagram, which is also going to be a trust diagram, and here that's gonna get a little bit more complex. So I would have some sensor, which Here, as you saw the subtype, I can even change the subtype of those elements. So over here I would have some actuator, for instance, and here some hub fusion, which will spread the information. Here we would have a data flow, which would be bidirectional. Okay, and voila, the result would look like this. After that, of course, once I would create all of those elements needed to complete this diagram, I would again add the trust boundaries and run the cybersecurity modeling analysis, where I would see the list of the threats. As I showed you before, here now it makes sense. When I double click, it highlights the situation, what needs your attention, and again you see that there is a link between those elements, between the threat, the actual threat, and those elements which are involved. Okay, so this is the concept. Let me go back to my presentation. Where we are now and where we are heading right now, or the idea is to provide a light version, out-of-the-box solution which would enable EA users to create a new threat model, modify an existing threat model, analyze the potential vulnerability using Stride, generate various reports, analyze, visualize, and communicate using business language heat map, which is built-in thing. This we are still having a discussion that this will be definitely provided for free, and we are having discussion with Spark Systems Australia, the headquarters, to incorporate it into the installation file of Enterprise Architect. We still don't know if when this happens, in which version of Enterprise Architect, or another possible deployment would be, or distribution of this functionality would be, that we would distribute it as a separate add-on to Enterprise Architect. What unlike the light version, the commercial version would be a customer-focused product incorporating advanced threat analysis based on a set of predefined domain-specific rules, such as for domains like automotive, transportation, and so on, together with a threat evaluation editor enabling users to modify or add new rules. Obviously, Spark System Center Europe, we don't feel we are not the experts in this area. Therefore, we have the benefit of collaborating with AIT, and AIT delivers the domain competence, and we, Spark Systems Center Europe, deliver the tool competence and a market for it. So that's the idea. Just by the way, Spark's Systems Center Europe, here are some research projects what we have been involved in. As I said, I will provide you the presentation, so or you will get a presentation, so you can click on those links. And if you want to get more training, consulting, premium support, or any kind of services around Enterprise Architect, here is the contact. With that, thank you so much for your patience, and hopefully talk to you soon. Since I see that the chat window is empty, no questions asked, so in case you have any questions, contact me either directly or just use this generic address, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Again, thank you so much for your attention, and have a great day. Bye bye.